For 2 months, my roommate and I each quietly believed the other one was eating our food, moving our stuff, and leaving the hall closet open. And we were both wrong, and the truth of it was living in the apartment with us the entire time, close enough to read the labels on our groceries and decide who's to take. I'm Wyatt, 26, I do remote tech support, so I'm home a lot. Headphones on, eyes down, which matters later. I split a 2-bedroom in Portland with a guy named Sean I'd found on a listing. Perfectly fine roommate, paid on time, kept to himself. And that's the thing nobody tells you about living with one other person. You know, every weird little thing that happens in the apartment has exactly one easy answer, and the answer is always the other guy. So when food started going, I blamed Sean. Half a leftover gone. A good lunch made down to nothing. A frozen thing I'd been saving just not there. The big Fred Meyer run I did every Sunday would be picked over by Wednesday in ways I knew I hadn't done. I'm not going to start a war over a sandwich. So I said nothing, and I started buying my stuff and mentally marking it, and it kept vanishing anyway. And I built up this quiet little resentment of a guy who I figured was helping himself and lying about it. Found out way later Sean was doing the exact same thing on his side, marking his food, getting quietly furious at me. We were both so sure it was the other one that neither of us ever once said out loud, and that silence is the whole reason it worked. It wasn't just food. The thermostat would be set to a temperature neither of us liked. A kitchen chair would be pulled out from the table in the morning. The hall closet, the deep one we barely used, kept easing open, and we'd each shut it and blame the other for leaving it ajar. Little stuff. The kind of thing you don't even register as a pattern because there's a person right there to pin it on. A roommate. A built-in explanation that turns off the part of your brain that should be asking the actual question. It got passive-aggressive before it ever got scary, which I think about a lot now. Sticky notes. Sean left one on the fridge, something short about respecting shared groceries, and I read it as him being a thief and a hypocrite both, so I left one back. And for a couple of weeks 2 grown men ran a cold little war of Post-its over food a third man was quietly eating. And somewhere back in that closet, I have to figure, he read them. Our notes, our handwriting, our names, our small dumb resentments, every one of them more proof to a man hiding 10 feet away that the two of us were each other's whole explanation, that we'd never once looked past each other to him. We were doing his security for him. In pen, on the refrigerator door, the sounds I blamed on Sean too. Soft stuff at night, a floorboard, the fridge opening when I was in bed, and me thinking, there's Sean getting a snack, and rolling over. A couple of times, honest to God, I half saw a shape move down the hall in the dark, and my brain filed it instantly under Sean. Going to the bathroom, nothing, sleep. I never checked. Why would I check? You don't investigate your own roommate walking around his own apartment at night. That assumption was a door I left open every single night, and somebody was using it. There was one night I came closer than I ever knew at the time. I got up around 3 for water, and the kitchen light was already on, and I stood in the hall a second, foggy, and called out low, Sean, you up? Nothing came back. The light clicked off, and I stood there in the dark and decided Sean had just gone back to bed and not felt like answering, because that was the easy answer, the roommate-shaped answer. And I went back to sleep. Sean told me weeks later he'd been dead out cold at 3 that whole stretch, door shut. Neither of us turned that light on. I'd stood 15 feet from him in the dark, said a name into the room, gotten silence back, and chosen gratefully to call the silence my roommate. Then Sean went home for the holidays, 2 weeks, and I had the place to myself. And the food kept disappearing. The closet kept opening. The fridge opened one night, while I lay there alone with my heart climbing into my throat, because there was no Sean now. There was no built-in answer. There was just me awake, in an apartment where something had opened the refrigerator. And every single thing I'd spent 2 months pinning on my roommate stood up all at once and turned to face me with nobody's name on it. I'd love to tell you I called someone right then. I didn't. I told myself it was paranoia. An empty apartment plays tricks, and I lasted 2 more days like that, jumpy, sleeping bad, until the morning I found the phone charger, plugged into the outlet behind the couch, a cheap white cord, not mine, not Sean's. I knew all our cords. Something was charging a phone in my living room, and it wasn't either of the two people who paid to live there. That cord is the moment the floor dropped out, because a person who's only stealing food doesn't need to charge a phone in your house. A person charging a phone in your house lives there. I found the rest of it in the hall closet, the deep one that kept opening, behind the winter coats and the vacuum we never used. Someone had made a space back there. A sleeping bag, flattened from use. A grocery bag of wrappers, my wrappers, the food I'd marked. A water bottle, and a little stack of things that had gone missing over the months that I'd never connected. A phone charger of mine, a hoodie, a spare key off the hook by the door that I'd assumed I lost. He'd been living in the 4 feet behind our coats, coming out when we slept or when the apartment was empty. And the two of us had spent a whole season handing him the perfect cover by blaming each other for everything he did. It was the phone that I still can't talk about without my skin moving. The cheap one on the charger behind the couch. The police bagged it, but I saw the screen when it woke up in the bag, and the picture on it was a hallway. Our hallway, shot in the dark from low, from about the height of a man sitting on the floor of a closet with the door cracked an inch, looking out at 2 bedroom doors. He hadn't just been surviving back there, taking food, waiting us out. He'd been watching us go to sleep, both of us, night after night, from the floor, through the gap in the coats, and he'd been keeping the pictures. The police came, and he was gone by then, out the same way he'd been coming and going, and they told me these cases are more common than you'd think, and almost never end with anybody caught, and that was the entire resolution available to me. I never learned how long he'd been back there. I never learned if it was the whole time I lived there, or just the cold months. What I can't put down is the nights. The shape in the hall I filed under Sean. All those times something moved through the dark, and I rolled over and went back to sleep 8 feet from a closet with a man in it, comforted, every time, by the thought that it was only my roommate. I check under the bed in hotel rooms now. I check the closet. I open every door, and I have never once shared a space with another person since, without lying awake wondering who's making the sound, I've decided to blame on them. I'd never met my roommate's ex, not once, but inside of a month he knew my car, my work schedule, and which of the 2 bedrooms was mine, and a man I had no relationship with at all spent the better part of a year deciding I was standing in his way. I was 30, an ER tech in Houston, splitting a 2-bedroom because rent down here stopped being a one-income thing a while back. I found a roommate on a listing, woman, quiet, paid early, a little jumpy in a way I chalked up to a stranger living with a stranger. She kept the blinds down all the time. She parked around the back. She asked me, the first week in this careful voice, not to post anything about the apartment online, and honestly I thought it was a privacy thing and respected it. And I had no idea I'd just agreed to a rule in a war didn't know I'd moved into the middle of. The first sign was a truck, parked across from our building. More mornings than not, somebody just sitting in it. And I noticed it the way you notice anything vaguely, until the morning it was there when I left for a shift at 5, and still there when I got back after dark. I mentioned it to my roommate, just making talk. Hey, that truck's always out there, and the color drained right out of her face. And that's when I got the short version. An ex. A bad one. She'd moved across the city and changed her number to get away from him. And somehow, he'd found a new place anyway. The more she let out over the following weeks, the worse it sat. He'd done it before her. To the girlfriend before her. The showing up, the not stopping. He'd put a tracker on her car once. He'd talked himself into knowing her work, her gym, her mother's street. She told me all of it in this flat, quiet voice, folding laundry while she said it, like she was reading me a weather report, and I understood she wasn't really warning me so much as apologizing in advance, because she already knew the shape of what came for whoever stood nearest to her, and right then the nearest person in the world was me. What I did not understand yet, the thing that took weeks to sink in, was that finding the apartment meant finding me. To him I wasn't a roommate. I was a man living with her, sharing her kitchen, parked next to her, and there was no version of the truth that his head would accept. The messages started coming to me, not her. I don't even know how he got my number. Stuff about staying away from her, then stuff about how he knew my schedule, then stuff that wasn't about her at all anymore, just about me, where I'd been, what I'd worn, a photo once of my own car taken from across the H-E-B lot while I loaded groceries. I'd inherited a stalker. I'd signed a lease and inherited a man's entire obsession as a roommate's hand-me-down. I want to be fair. She was terrified. She felt awful. None of it was something she did to me on purpose. But the machine didn't care whose fault it was. He escalated on the apartment itself. Our shared door. A thing with both our names near it. Our tires. Flat one morning, both cars. His way of telling us he could reach what was ours. A back window pried at. The marks fresh in the paint. Notes once, nothing signed. Left where only somebody who'd been right up against the building could leave them. And the whole time the law's answer was that he hadn't technically done a provable thing to me specifically. That her order didn't cover her roommate. That I was, in the language of the situation, not a party to it. I was just the guy who slept 8 feet from the person he wanted. Behind a door he decided he was owed. He got to the door itself one night. And that's the image I can't put down. I came back from a late shift, and there was a single cigarette stubbed out on the concrete right against our door, and a smear of something on the peephole glass. Wiped, like a thumb had rubbed across it from the outside. And I stood there and understood he hadn't just been watching the building from the truck. He'd been up at our door, in the dark, with his eye to the hole looking in. I knocked our own code, so she'd know it was me. And when I got in, she was sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets and the lights off. And she didn't even look up. She just said, "He was here, wasn't he?" in this small voice. And I didn't have to answer because the look on my face already had. 2 grown adults sitting on a kitchen floor in the dark because a man neither of us could legally do anything about had pressed his eye to our door. Then she ran. I don't blame her. She did the only thing that ever works. She vanished one weekend. New city gone, and I came home to half an empty apartment and a problem that did not leave with her, because he didn't know she was gone. For weeks he kept watching the building, the door, my car, certain she was still inside, certain I was hiding her, and now I was alone in it as the only face attached to the place he was fixated on. The truck came back. The messages kept coming, meaner now, because in his head I was the man keeping him from her. And I had no relationship to end, no information to give, no way at all to prove a negative to a man who'd already decided what was true. I moved too. In the end, broke the lease, because the cops could log it, and the judge could eventually sign something, but none of that puts a body between you and a man in a truck at 5 in the morning. He never touched me. I'll say that plainly. But for a year, a stranger studied my routine, photographed my car, learned my shifts, and threatened me over a woman I had shared nothing with but a fridge in a hallway. And there is a particular kind of fear in being hunted for a thing you aren't and can't stop being. I never dated her. I never even knew her last name until I saw it on the lease. And somewhere out there is a man who spent a year of his life convinced I'd taken something from him, who has my name and my face and the make of my car committed to memory, and who, as far as I know, still believes I was the one standing in his way. The day I told my roommate he had to leave, he smiled at me, easy, and said he wasn't going anywhere. And the worst part of this whole story is how right he turned out to be, for a lot longer than I will ever be okay with. I'll call myself Emmett. I'm a welder, 34, and a few years back money got tight, and I did the normal thing. I took on a roommate to split a place in Cleveland, a guy a buddy sort of knew. Clean enough on paper. The first 2 months were fine. Then he stopped paying. And when a man stops paying and stops apologizing about it in the same week, that's the whole tell. That's him deciding the apartment is his now and watching to see what you'll do about it. I brought up the rent polite, and he just looked at me. This flat, long look, and I felt something cold go down my back. The thing your body knows before your head will say it, which is that you are now living with somebody you are a little afraid of. It got bad in inches. He took over the common space, the TV, kitchen, left his stuff where it landed and dared me to move it. He'd have people over I didn't know, at hours that didn't make sense. My things started going wrong. A busted cabinet, my tools moved, a dent in my truck, Never anything I could prove was him, and all of it clearly him. He started locking his door and, I'm fairly sure, sleeping with something next to the bed. And I started doing the same, because the apartment had quietly turned into 2 armed camps with a shared bathroom, and I was paying the full rent on a place I was scared to walk around in at night. So I looked into getting him out. And that's where I learned the thing that nobody believes until they're in it. You can't just remove him. A buddy told me to change the locks, and I called a lawyer to be sure, and the lawyer said, "Don't you dare, that the second a person is established as living there, the law treats them like a tenant, and tossing their stuff or changing the locks makes me the criminal." I had to serve notice. I had to go to court. I had to give a man who frightened me weeks of official runway, on paper, with his name on it, while he kept right on living in the room next to mine, knowing exactly what I was trying to do. There's no part of that process that protects you during. It only shows up after. And here's the part that still makes me laugh, the bad kind of laugh. I was the one who had to keep paying. All of it. The whole rent on time. To keep the lease clean, so the court would take me seriously. While the man I was paying to evict ate in my kitchen and watched my TV for free. Stopped paying to make a point, and I become the one in breach. So I worked doubles to cover the full nut on an apartment I was scared to walk through, handing over every dollar on time, funding the roof over the head of the guy who'd started leaving his door open at night, so I'd have to walk past him in the dark to reach the bathroom. He knew that too. He knew I was trapped into keeping him comfortable, and he enjoyed it. You could see him enjoy it. He knew the law better than I did. That was the thing. He'd done this before, I'm certain of it. The day I handed him the notice was the day he smiled and told me he wasn't going anywhere, and then he settled in, comfortable, because he understood that the weeks the court made me wait were weeks I had to spend sleeping down the hall from him, and he used them. The intimidation got open, standing in my doorway at night, not saying anything, just filling it, telling me calm, the kinds of things a man says when he wants you to know he's thought about where you work and what your sister's car looks like. Making the apartment a place where I ate fast, kept my back to a wall, and counted the hours till my shift so I could leave. The escalation I should have read clearer came about a week out. My bedroom door had a lock, a cheap interior one, and one evening it wouldn't catch right, and when I looked close the strike plate was loose. 2 screws backed most of the way out, not broken, backed out careful with a tool by somebody who wanted the door to look fine and hold like nothing. I put longer screws in that night with my hands not quite steady, and I understood that while I was at work, in the hours I gave to the doubles that paid his rent, he'd been in my room with a screwdriver, quietly taking the one lock between us apart a turn at a time. To be fair, I'd known for weeks it was coming. That was the night I knew it. The night it went physical. I'd come home late off a double, and he was waiting up, and something about the day had flipped him. And the argument that started over nothing turned fast into him between me and the only door out. I'm not going to walk through all of it. I'm a big guy and I work with my hands, and it still wasn't enough. And the only reason I'm telling you this from here is that I got to the door before he got me all the way down, and I went out into the parking lot in a Cleveland January with no coat and no shoes, and I did not stop. He got arrested. He went away for a while. People hear that and think the story closes there. It doesn't close, because I'd signed a lease thinking the worst case was a guy who wouldn't pay, and the actual worst case is that you hand a stranger a key to the room you sleep in, and then the law informs you it's his to keep, and the only exit is the one you can reach before he does. He's out now. He has my full name, knows my trade, mentioned my family more than once. I don't take roommates. I'd rather work the overtime and eat the rent than ever again hand another human being a key and a legal claim to the place I close my eyes. The lock on your door only keeps out the people who don't already live there. Nobody warns you about the worst intruder being the one you let in on purpose, and then can't get back out.